Hello everyone, in this video we are going to talk about how to do emotion detection with ChatGPT. So let's get started. This is the agenda of this video. First, we will talk about how to sign up an account with OpenAI. So OpenAI is the company that developed ChatGPT. In order to use ChatGPT, we need to sign up an account. After that, we will talk about how to interact ChatGPT on your browser. And then we will also talk about how to interact ChatGPT in Python. In order to interact with ChatGPT in Python, we need two things. First is we need the OpenAI API key, and then we need to install the OpenAI Python library. And then lastly, we will do emotion detection with ChatGPT. Okay, let's talk about how to sign up an account with OpenAI. To do that, let's simply Google OpenAI. And then usually the first link is the openai.com, so let's click on that. On the OpenAI homepage, there is a sign up button on the top right corner, so let's click on that. And this is where you will enter the email address that you want your account to be. Or if you have existing Google account or existing Microsoft account or Apple account, you can use that as well. So since I already have an account, so I'm not going to register another account. But basically, once you enter your email address, or if you want to continue with Google or Microsoft, once you click on those and enter your email address, it will ask you to provide a password and also your birthday and also your phone number. And then it will verify, make sure that the phone number belongs to you by sending you some verification code. After the process complete, then you will have registered an account with OpenAI. Once you create an account, let's go back to this OpenAI homepage. And then again on the top right corner, there is this login button where we can click on it. And I'm going to log in with my Google account. Once we log in, we can see a page with 3 channels. Let's click on the one on the left, which says ChatGPT. This basically directs us to a page where we can interact ChatGPT on our browser. Okay, right here we can start typing some messages to ChatGPT. For example, I can say, "Hi, how are you?" And then ChatGPT will respond. Okay, saying that he doesn't have any feelings, but he's here to help us. How can he assist us today? We can also ask ChatGPT to write some Python code. For example, please write a Python code that calculates factorial. Okay, if we do that, then ChatGPT will write a code that calculates factorial for us. You can simply copy and paste it to the place you want. You can also ask him about like how many characters can I send you per prompt. So a prompt is basically the message that we send to ChatGPT. Okay, saying that you can only handle maximum limit of the input text 4,000 tokens. Token is a loose concept. You can basically think about token as a characters. So token can be as short as 1 character or as long as 1 word. For our purposes, we can just treat tokens as characters. And then let's remember that number 4,000. Okay, and this is how you can interact with ChatGPT on your browser. Now let's talk about how you can interact ChatGPT with Python. To do that, we need to first generate OpenAI API key. So let's go back to this login page where we see 3 panels. Let's click on the panel on the right where it says API. Once we are in this page, click on this personal on the top right corner and then click on this view API keys. Okay, over here we can generate our keys. So I'm going to generate test key to be deleted. Create key. Okay, once we create this new key, make sure we copy it. Let's save the key on some notepad. Done. Let's go to our Jupyter notebook. The second thing that we need to do is to install the OpenAI library. So we can simply do that inside our Jupyter notebook. Just type $pip install OpenAI and then execute. Because I already executed before, so I'm not going to execute it again here. Once we install the library, we can import the OpenAI library. And we need to specify the OpenAI.api key. This is the key that we just generated before. So I'm going to copy this and then paste it here. Now I need to construct a helper function, which I called getCompletion. The input to this helper function is the prompt, which is the messages that we want to send to ChatGPT, and then the model. By default, the model will be GPT 3.5 Turbo, so we will use that as our default model. We need to create an object called messages. List messages is simply a list of dictionary which has two elements, row and content. Because we are all users, so the row will always be users, and then the content will be our prompt. So to generate response from the ChatGPT, we need to use this OpenAI.chatCompletion.create method. And then inside this method, there are three parameters: the model, which by default will be GPT 3.5 Turbo, the messages, which is the messages that we just created earlier, and then the temperature. This temperature basically specifies the randomness of the response generated by the ChatGPT. So the value ranges from 0 to 2. If the temperature is close to 2, meaning that the response will be more random. If you send the same prompt every time, the response will be very different every time. If the temperature is close to 0, then it just means that the response will be more deterministic. So if you are sending same prompt to ChatGPT multiple times, you are likely to get same result every time. In order to extract the response from ChatGPT, we need to use this response.choices, the first element of the choices.messages, and then content. Okay, let's execute this helper function. So after that, we can use this getCompletion helper functions to send prompt to ChatGPT. So for example, I'm sending him, "How are you?" And I will get a return saying that as an AI, he doesn't have feelings, but he's here to help us with any questions or tasks we have. Okay, I can also send him, "How many characters in a prompt can I send to you?" It says, "You can send up to 2000 characters in a single prompt to me." So there is some discrepancy between this response and the response we get from the browser version. But anyway, we will keep in mind that we can only send up to 2000 characters. Okay, now let's talk about how we can do emotion detection with ChatGPT. It's very simple. We can simply ask him to do that for us. So I'm going to separate our prompt into different sections. First section is the initial prompt. This is where we are telling ChatGPT to please detect emotions from the below passages that are surrounded by triple quote. And then I'm going to create another string called triple quote, which has the triple quote in it. And finally, I'm going to create the last string, which I called passage. This is the passage of Harry Potter novel that we want the ChatGPT to detect emotions. So I simply open the first book, first chapter, and then grab the first paragraph, pasting here. This will be our passage. So to send all those together, I simply use these add operators to add initial prompt, triple quote, and passage triple quote together. That way it will receive the initial prompt, and then the passage is surrounded by triple quote, so ChatGPT know what we are asking him to do. So let's see the response. Okay, we need to execute those three. And then let's see the response. Okay, the emotions that can be detected from the passages are pride, disbelief, curiosity, fear, and disgust. So this is basically how you can do emotion detection with ChatGPT. But not only does it return the emotions, it also returns which sentence does that emotion occur. We don't need all those information, so I'm going to ask ChatGPT to only return emotions and nothing else. So I modify my initial prompt a little bit. Please detect emotions from the below passages that are surrounded by triple quote. And also, please only return emotions separated by commas and nothing else. So once I change my initial prompt and then run it again, now we only get a list of emotions separated by commas. This is how you can detect emotion for any passage you want. But what if we want to analyze all emotions for all chapter 1? So we can simply loop through our text and then separate our text by chunk, because it can only receive up to about 2000 characters. Leave some room for the initial prompt. I'm going to separate the first chapter into chunk of size 19,000. Let's first read the first chapter into this object line, and then separate this line by chunk, where each chunk has a size of 19,000 characters. Okay, let's check the length of the chunk. This tells us that chapter 1 has been separated into 14 chunks. And if we check the size of each chunk, we can see that all the chunk has 19,000 characters except the very last one, which only has 1,034 characters. Now we are ready to iterate through all these chunks and then detect the emotions using ChatGPT. So I'm going to iterate through the chunks, and then within each loop, I'm going to set passage equals to the chunk. And I'm going to use getCompletion function to get response from ChatGPT. Every time I'm getting a response, I'm going to write that into a file, which is simply the chapter name.txt. But this file is under this directory called Harry Potter Chapters Emotions. And this time we are going to use A as the append mode instead of W as a write mode, because we don't want to overwrite everything we get a new response. We simply want to append the new response at the end of the file. So that's why I'm using this A to indicate that we want an append mode. Okay, I'm going to write response plus a comma plus a white space into the file. Not only will I write the response to the file, I'm also going to print out some results in Python. So I'm going to print out the chunk index and then also the emotions that ChatGPT detect, and then also a new line characters. Each time when I run a loop, I'm going to ask Python to sleep for 3 seconds. This is because last time when I run this cell, I encounter this error which says the server is overloaded or not ready yet. So I'm hoping by allowing Python to sleep for 3 seconds, I can get over that error. Another thing I also want to see is the cost to execute this cell of code, because my free trial version of OpenAI account has already expired. So everything I'm doing here will cost my money. To understand how much will that cost, let's go back to this page where we create our API keys. On the left, you can see there is a usage tab. This is the page that keeps track of the spending of using ChatGPT. So today I'm already spending 2 cents. I want to see how much will it cost if we simply want to detect emotions for the first chapters. So let's do it. It's actually finished earlier than I expected because it only takes less than 1 minute. And this is when we allow 3 seconds sleep times every time we run into the loop. So the actual time that takes us to send prompt to ChatGPT and get response is probably less than 20 seconds. One last thing I want to check is how much does it cost to analyze the emotion for the first chapter. So let's go back to this usage page. As you can see, I'm spending 3 cents now instead of 2 cents. So it seems like it only takes 1 cent to analyze emotions for one chapter because it's really cheap. So I think I'm going to go ahead and analyze the emotions for entire Harry Potter series. But this video is already very long, so I'm going to work on that in my next video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Other than that, I will see you in my next video.